Hello, everyone, and welcome to KYGO Digital. I'm Brandy New, an Instructional Technology Coordinator for Hardin County Schools. I don't be leading today, but we are joined by our awesome KYGO Digital Live team. We got Courtney Durosset, member of the field staff for the Office of Technology. And Dana Dowdy coming to us as a digital learning coach from Graves County. And Allin she makes all the magic happen for us on the back end from Jefferson. Today we're going to be talking about eSports. I think we all kind of agreed, we were chatting before. Super excited about this. I know for myself, I was an athlete growing up, know the importance of being on a team and what that does for a kid. And I love that we have some folks here today that are going to talk to us about the how and the why of getting more kids onto teams in the way of eSports. So we're going to be talking to Brandon Blackburn. He's the CO, DTC, and lead eSports gamer for Pikeville Independent School. Hi, Brandon. He's also the KYSTE president. Nice. Yeah, I forgot that part. We got Ed Allin and Michael Arnold from Hardin County Schools. Michael is network admin, and Ed is a coach and teacher here in Hardin County, coach of eSports and football. Congrats on the big win Friday night, by the way, Coach Allin. Go North. And then we've got Matt Bulka, who is a digital innovation leader in Jefferson County, and he's going to talk to us today. I think Brandon is going to kick us off this morning. Have we got you, Brandon?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Excellent. If you want to share your slides and get going for us. On the back end, we have Courtney on the YouTube channel because we are live so that you can chat there and throw in questions. And if you don't have the ability to do that, don't worry. All of our shows are there on our YouTube live channel. You just subscribe and you can go back and watch them whenever you want.
How did we find ourselves connecting and talking about eSports? That's the big thing that I think we all want to know. And first of all, our students are part of a major movement. And you can see by the slide here is that they are anticipating an audience of 645 million folks around the world. Just watching and anticipating these matches and being involved in eSports. And it's just amazing to me that there's such a vast number of folks following this. And they've even been on, eSports competitors have been on the cover of Sports Illustrated. They've been on the cover of ESPN the magazine. And so our students are just part of this massive movement. And so it's no wonder that it's invaded our space. And according to HSEL, we went from 200 districts in the country last year to more than 1,200 districts being involved in eSports, again, across America. So that's just an amazing number. And it just inherently just shows that our students are going to then push us to wanting to be involved, or maybe it's even coming down from administrators or maybe parents or community members. It's caught fire and it's just taken over the world. And so I think it's an incredible opportunity. And speaking of opportunity for our students to be involved in such a massive movement community, look at the scholarships that are now being given out by colleges. Last year, 2018 to 2019, over $15 million in scholarships went to eSports. So again, parent phone calls, community members, school administration, guidance counselors are going to come to us and say, hey, we need to get into this. We need to tap into this resource. And so that's why we're seeing that 200 to 1,200 district jump. And who knows where Kentucky is at this point. But if I looked at the PlayVS numbers a year ago, it was quite a large number of people starting to stick their foot into the pool and getting more and more involved. And so maybe these are slides that you can use to kind of get things going, get buy-in from the administrative side of things. But, for me, I wasn't necessarily worried about that. For me, when we were getting started a year ago with eSports, I was thinking about, well, what about our students? I know a lot of people are going to be saying, well, are they just going to be playing video games? What about the content? How do we make sure that we're offering something that is, beneficial to our students? And so that's exactly what I started digging into to put with my pitches to administration and to folks around our community. And believe it or not, there are just a ton of just one-pagers out there that groups have already established to kind of help you answer these questions. So yeah, you can throw numbers, you can throw dollar amounts, you can throw all these things to them. But here's what's really important to me is that we are providing a sense of community. We're getting character development. We're increasing participation throughout our school. And of course, we got all these theme tie-ins. And if you look up that top right, this is a quote that I pulled from this eSports guide. It says 84% of the first season players from this foundation said that they found a community that they could connect with. And that speaks volumes to me when students are saying, you know what, I didn't have a home. I didn't have a family at this school. And schools are great big families. And it kind of, just tugs at my heartstrings a little bit, thinking that there's students out there that don't feel like they're a part of that family. And eSports are bringing that together. And even further than that, Lafayette High School in Georgia, their coach said that kids were dramatically pulling up their grades just so they could participate in eSports. And so now we're getting into really impactful things that is changing students' lives. So yes, we're a part of a great big movement. Yes, we're adding to the numbers of districts across the country. Yes, we're getting kids scholarship money, which is fantastic. But what I love about eSports is that we are drawing kids into our families. And that means the world to me. For example, for us last year, we had an incredible Fortnite player, and that was a football player. And we had a kid in class that was really quiet. I mean, he was really somewhat, introverted, if you will. And he was just an incredible player as well. And these two had never really spoken to each other. And we were thinking about bringing a Fortnite team together. We didn't end up doing it through HSEL. But these two connected, and they were playing nightly together. And they were talking at school. And it was just an amazing thing to see. And that grew and grew and grew. And so that's what I really love about what we've been doing here with eSports. And we got a lot of great people on the panel here that's going to talk more to it. So I'm going to jump through this last couple of things quickly. Last year, we were with HSEL, which is one of the larger, governing groups of high school eSports. But through KYSTE now, they have become kind of the governing body of eSports, especially within Kentucky, of course, as it's KYSTE. And here is their kind of startup guide of how to get involved. And I think others are going to speak to getting into different groups because HSEL was fantastic with us. And because we were getting involved with Play VS, we had to take this semester off because just kind of give you some insight. Last year through HSEL, we were paying, I think it was $350 for unlimited students, but I believe through Play VS, it's $72 per student. So our budget completely changed. So we had to get into fundraising, we had to get into sponsors, and a lot of different things. But the good thing about it is that it's very easy to set up. As long as you get administrative buy-in, as long as you connect with your IT department, and if you go to KYSTE, hopefully you'll see on the screen now, they have an entire section that answers so many questions and how to get started, and including these little documents like this that they have links to through Play VS that have some of the quotes and stats that I've shared with you folks today that, again, will help you get things off the ground. So if I can just recap from my side of things, I love that we're a part of a movement. I love we're getting scholarship dollars to these kids. But most of all, I love that we are expanding our community through eSports. And I think the rest of these panelists are going to show you even more detail about how we can implement this in Kentucky. And I think it's a wonderful thing. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
I have a question, Brandon.
Yes.
There's also some controversies on eSports. You have, and I'll just say you have that flip side of that you have some games that they, use some terminology that's a little scary, especially this day and age. But at the same time, I think the KYSTE, they're using some things like getting the superintendent on board, making parents aware of the games they're type of playing, that it's not just like we're letting these kids play this game and there's no communication with the community, right? There's a lot of buy-in and prep work, right?
Yeah, and another thing too, I think that might have been a part of why they got involved with Play VS. Play VS has a much smaller scope of games that they allow kids to participate in, where HSEL has a very long list of games, which may include games that may have some ties to those controversies. So, I think it just really comes down to working with your IT department, making sure things are, safe and secure, and that they're not branching out into sites and going places, outside of the game that may get them into, a little bit of trouble. But it's also just understanding, how to manage those students and let them know that just like any other sport, they represent the school. Their actions are very important. With Play VS, I think you have to be on site. So you should be able to manage them well. Where HSEL, you can play from home. So you have less control and management there. And so, there's a lot of layers, but just like any other organization, club, sports activity, there's just got to be some management help, volunteers, buy-in, all those things have to take place to make it work.
Awesome. That's exactly what I was hoping you would say, that it's just like every other support as far as the support system and the coaching that is still involved by the adults that are still working with these kids, right?
Yeah.
I know you put in a ton of time.
It's been awesome.
Yeah, I'm right there with you all and with Courtney on that one, because it's still a sport. We're giving those same opportunities and those same community building experiences that you're going to get with any other sport, but it has the same sort of responsibilities as any other sport too. So I'm glad you addressed that, Brandon. And I think, like I said, transparency, superintendent, with your, parents, like anything else, and it's all going to be out there. So that's fabulous. I think Matthew is also a coach. Are you going to talk to us a little bit about your experience here in Jefferson County?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently in Jefferson County now as a digital innovation leader, but last year I was a teacher at Thomas Nelson High School in Bardstown, and I also started my own eSports team there to compete with Play Versus. Really, this comes down to, we were talking about treating eSports like a sport, and that comes down to number one is treating your team like a team. And I'll go through some of this with you. So if we go to slide 9 there, you can see some of the things that I implemented. We did tryouts. So we participated through Play Versus and HSEL. So we did have Fortnite, we had Rocket League, we had Super Smash Brothers, and then we had League of Legends through Play Versus. I did tryouts for my kids. We didn't have a ton of money that we could put at this, and I didn't want them to have to pay fees. So I kind of limited my numbers there. But also, we did different things like senior night. We made sure that our players were going to get letters for their Letterman jackets. We bought jerseys together, and they had their gamer tags on the back. So we really tried to have regular practices. We would have film sessions every Wednesday where we would look at replays. So when you go through and you start thinking about your esports team, really think of it just like a football coach would, a basketball coach would. You want to analyze your plays. You want to hold everybody accountable grade-wise, behavior-wise. You wouldn't be able to sit there and cuss out a kid on the basketball court. So with esports, it's the exact same way. You need to hold yourself to a high behavior standard as well. My second pro tip for esports is to, as a coach, you don't have to be proficient in any of the games, but at least understand them a little bit. So go on YouTube. There's a website called Pro Guides, or you can go on Reddit or Twitter or Twitch and Mixer, and you can find people that are there to teach you how to play these games. In League of Legends, it is incredibly complicated. There's 145 characters now, I think, which is just insane. And you have to really, to be good at the game, you have to know what all of them do and how to counter them and how to play against them. So it's having that basic knowledge of how I play against someone, or how you make certain plays in Rocket League or something like that is really crucial. And you'll gain the respect of your players a little bit more too, because you'll be able to tell them, hey, don't go for this ball when it's here, stuff like that. My third pro tip for esports teams is to scrimmage and practice as much as you can. So find other schools in your district. Play Versus is really good about giving you a list of all the coaches. So if you can find those people and reach out and say, hey, let's set up a scrimmage for this Monday. We can get some practice time in before our games on Tuesday. We had a group of recent graduates that wanted to play against us because they were jealous that we had an esports team when it wasn't there for them. So we would scrimmage against them from time to time at practices as well. And the more team time you can get together, the more your kids are going to bond, the better the experience is going to be for them. going along with that is exercise is super important. It is one of the non-negotiables that I had with my team last year was they had to exercise every day before we played. So that for us looked like 15 minutes of walking or running, whatever speed felt best for them. I would walk or run with them. I felt like if I was going to ask them to do it, it was something that I should do too, to model good behavior. We would do sit-ups, we would do push-ups as well. Sometimes we would play dodgeball for fun. So just like a more entertaining workout. And I would have like the Rocket League team play against the League of Legends team, just to kind of get that sort of team building going there as well. We also exercise, I don't want to say like exercise your soul, but we did volunteer work together as well. So that picture there was my team volunteering with the Barstown Rotary Club to send meals to a couple countries in Africa on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So that my kids came in at 8 a.m. on the day they had off from school and helped pack these meals for people. And then finally, the last pro tip that I have for you is Play Versus is great, and it is what the state of Kentucky recognizes as KHSAA official esports. But there are other options out there. Like Brandon was saying, there is the High School Esports League, which has tons of different games. If you look at Fortnite, there's Super Smash Brothers, there's Hearthstone, all these different games that kids find popular. And like Brandon said, you don't have to compete at school. So if your administration doesn't feel comfortable with kids playing Fortnite on their network at school, the kids can still make a team and play Fortnite at home together. So High School Esports is really cool that way. It's also cheaper than Play Versus. So Play Versus runs you $64 per student per season, where High School Esports League starts, I think, at $37 per student per season. And as you have more people, it kind of discounts a little bit. And then finally, where we are in JCPS, and I am the lead of JCPS Esports, we are going to be hosting a tournament in conjunction with the Louisville Sports Commission and a company called Allin out of Ohio, which runs esports events all around the country. And that will be in the spring. I will be tweeting that out. We have a link to that. So please follow us for more information on that. There's going to be like $5,000 prize money. We'll have tons of different games going on there. So it'll be great. Thank you.
Okay, Matt, real quick, while we've got your slides up here still.
Absolutely.
I want to draw attention to, is that a purple cow that was your mascot?
Yeah. So Thomas Nelson, the big thing was the purple cow. So we made our mascot the purple cow with a headset on. So.
That's absolutely fabulous. I love that. That was precious.
Thanks.
But now you've used it. I don't know. Now we're going to have to.
I know, yeah.
Did you steal that? Like, do you have intellectual property rights? Did you take
I don't think I do. No, I think you can have
it. No, that's fabulous.
I have a question. Go ahead. I'm sorry. So I'm thinking, I know Brandon is really passionate. They have a STEAM night and a STEM night and a STEM day, and they showcase all this. And it sounds like, Matt, you invested a lot of time too. So I know that these games are not played. It's just like every other sport. It's not played during the day. It's after school, right? It's after school. It's supervised. I mean, the amount of time that you all invest, but also I love how you talked about how you recognize them with making sure that they, get the same accolades and the same responsibilities with the community service. The same. I'm sure you look at their GPA, all of those. Yeah, I mean, they are the same. They're treated the exact same, with the same type of expectation. And I think that's why you all are on this panel, because that is the type of expectation that you hope statewide eSport coaches have. So kudos to both of you all for
I actually held my players to a higher standard than other athletics. For the other sports in the school, you were ineligible after failing 2 classes. Of my kids, you couldn't fail any. So, you have to work harder when it's something that people don't recognize as legitimate. So,
that's awesome.
Thanks.
Matt, I would also want to say how awesome it is that it's more than just playing a game. I loved how you had your kids exercising and community service. Like, it really encompasses more than just that game, and I love that aspect of it.
That's what sports is. It's making the kids better people. So we know that most athletes are not going to go professional, but it's about making them better people and finding themselves and just all around bettering themselves. So, and that's part of it.
That's fabulous. I'm just grinning from ear to ear over here because it makes me so happy to think that it's not a typical athletic or academic kids that are getting grabbed by doing this. We're just casting a wider net and offering these opportunities to more kids, which is fabulous. Like I said at the beginning of the show, my experiences in sports and high school, those are relationships that have stuck with me for 25 years now. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just amazing that you're providing that.
I agree totally. There's more to sports and friendships that I have now. Really, the friends I have are the people I played on a sport with and had that bond. Jody Rose just jumped onto the chat. Shout out to my teammate out west. I'm so glad that he jumped in. But he has a question about, is there an expectation of and discussion of teaching kids to step away, to not always be like, screen time in the game, to have that discussion? And is there a way to monitor to make sure they're not, just so into the game that they're consumed by it? I assume is what he meant. And Jody, you can let me know if you don't.
That was something that I had a couple players that would go home and they would play all the time. Really, I think you do have to have that conversation of moderation. It is something that's different with esports that you don't necessarily have with other ones. Like, you can't go home and play football all night long, right? There's not 10 other people typically for most students that they have at their house ready to go and play football. So it's definitely a conversation that you need to have.
And Ed, Allin, I'm sure you also have views on that, being a coach of both esports and football.
Oh, yeah. The camaraderie we had here, we have all three high schools here. So I was trying to manage 3 esports teams with 3 different sports. And it went off pretty well. We had a couple of technical issues, which Michael can attest to, but we were able to work through those. It created a backlog, I'm sure and Matthew, I wanted to thank you. He helped immensely last year's first time I'm able to see his face, but he was helping me behind the scenes get the esports up and rolling for us here in Hardin County. But it's bringing the dynamics together with all the different high schools. It just breaks down so many barriers because it's something that all the kids can relate to. However, since it's KYSTE, they still have to remain on those teams, but they get to practice against each other, and they would do some things intermingling that way, where they would come up with their own scrimmage teams and scrimmage. But it's in its infancy here also. You guys have given me some really great ideas, and I hope you share out those slide decks because that information would really help in guidance for any, I'm a newbie, it's my first year coaching. I've been coaching track and field and football for 21 years, but I'm new to this. So, that information you just shared out is invaluable. And one thing you both said, it's very, very important to have a really good relationship with your IT department. So shout out to Michael here. Michael's a young guy. He always sees a way through, it seems, when I think there is no way, but he's always been there and been able to find us a way to get so that we can play. And it's important to our kids because they, as you guys know, they put a lot of sweat and heart into practice, and it's important that they play. So just wanted to give Mike a shout out there.
I think maybe on that, for a larger district, the tip from Ed too is, in Hardin County Schools, we do have one high school where all 3 home high schools feed to. So we ran all of our league play out of that one centralized high school, which allowed us to have the equipment in one place, spend the time and the money in that one place, right, Ed?
Right.
And it wasn't each school trying to do their own. So other districts that are our size, that might be something that they could also kind of take as a tip, and that way each school's not trying to pull it off on their own. By centralizing it, we were able to offer opportunities to all 3 high schools.
Right. That was something that when we first started up, KYSTE, I had to them several times about that concept. But it's just like, in football, it's just like going, if my field is like, say it's flooded out, and I could go over to Central Hardin and, basically use their field to play my game on. So I finally got that across that, hey, it's just a venue, they're staying on their teams. And I think that may have been the concern. I'm not sure. But, yeah, it definitely helped us because from a bandwidth standpoint, we were technically, we were kind of tied down to that. Am I right there, Mike, in saying that we're kind of tied down with the bandwidth over here as opposed to the other schools?
I wonder.
No, shouldn't be too much of an issue. The main issue was with trying to figure out filtering and why the games wouldn't work to begin with. We had about a week or so where gameplay was delayed, was scheduled because they were being filtered for one reason or another. Luckily, Ed was able to get me in contact, support at Play VS, and I worked with them in a whitelist of IP addresses and domain names and URLs that had to be whitelisted. We use Lightspeed for our filtering system, like many districts in Kentucky. So there were a handful of URLs and IP addresses that needed to be whitelisted. And we also ran into a big issue with bypass banning. So the Lightspeed filtering system has bypass banning enabled. So if a user tries to bypass the filter, it automatically kills their connection. And with some of those games, the filter was seeing those connections as bypass, trying to bypass the system. So their computers, their network connections were being disabled for 10 minutes and then they come back on. So that was the biggest hurdle we had to get over, was just trying to get it working to begin with.
And I think, and I don't know if we officially announced or introduced him, but that's Michael Arnold. He's our network admin here in Hardin County. And as you noticed, him and Ed kind of bouncing off each other. We wanted to highlight that relationship, and that's why we had Michael today. And then also, if there's any questions on the technical end of it, as far as the networking and the filters and that sort of thing, Michael can speak to that. Do we have any on the YouTube?
Not at this time, but I think that having your contacts and having this panel as a contact, because I know everyone here has worked the relationship, Michael, that you hold, the IT folks back in Jefferson and with Pikeville Independent, I know that they have the same things, that they have to have the know-how and the knowledge. So if you're watching this show and you need to reach out, any of these districts will be happy to help. And I hope, Michael, you don't mind me just giving that open season like that, but we're in it together. And I love what Edwin just said with that sharing. That it's just like if you need to share a field. I know Pikeville High School shares their field with a college, with Pikeville University, and whatever it takes just to be able to help these kids have this opportunity as safely and as, it's just important. So good job, IT people.
And Michael, was there anything else you wanted to add on the back end for us?
Basically, it was just trial and error for us. Once we finally got the correct information from Play VS, we were able to get that working. Currently, KDE, the state's technical department, isn't making any changes on their end. So if you do run into issues with firewall filtering or blocking, then you may have to make some changes on your end. But right now, currently, the state isn't making any changes to their network settings.
That's good to know, because that's we ran into it. I'm not sure if Matthew and Brandon seemed like they ran pretty clean, but we were involved with Rocket League, and Rocket League was like one machine was sending out 7,000 to 9,000 pings, and and that kind of got OET's attention, and not in a good way. So that kind of put the screws down on security a little bit on our end, because that's something that a district has a little bit of leeway of, okay, we could go this far with it, but we can't go that far with it. But we were able to get it to where Michael would actually, on those days, I would try to remind him, because he's got a full plate, hey, can you just open that port so we can play, the game, play the game. But it went smooth after that initial, like, what is all this network overhead that we're seeing here? It seemed to go a lot smoother after that learning curve got over with. But I think those slide decks that you two guys have, has the reference to those white lists already there. So I know that was a big help. Once Mike got that information, which as a coach, I didn't do a good job getting that information to him. I was trying to manage the three teams that were here, and you can imagine what that's like when you got 19 teenagers running around. They're like trying to get Rocket League teams together and Smite and League of Legends, and then the containers that they were playing in. That was another issue with Steam. So I mean, there's a lot of little intricate parts. So if you're not IT-ish, which I learned a whole lot, and I've been doing Cisco and Microsoft for years and years, but gaming is a different beast, that's for sure. So it's definitely has a learning curve. I won't say a steep learning curve, but there's definitely a learning curve if you're not in that generation. So, and I'm not in that generation. So anyway, you guys with the slide decks, I can't wait for you to share those out again, so I can just go over those. So anyway, thanks a lot.
And I think when you think about the state and them looking at what they're opening up, the fact that they don't want to open up, I think is just to make sure that they maintain the security of the network, to make sure that those layers are lock solid, because we're so proud of it. So we don't want to make sure that anything is, compromised. So I know there's additional steps that districts may have to go through because of that. And I appreciate all the IT leaders that don't care to do those on an individual basis, just to give that opportunity, and we can still maintain the integrity of our network. And that just speaks volumes to your district IT for doing it the right way and making sure that it still stays secure so that all kids can learn the day-to-day, and then the extra participation after school for eSports can happen too.
I think that's for sure. I think we all understand it and appreciate it, yeah, that it's working out. Matt or Brandon, did you all have anything else that you thought of you wanted to add in before we?
Brandon had a question.
Oh, okay.
I was just curious, and maybe it's something that we can share out. How are districts handling achieving funding for esports? I know that we kind of did a way that we saw other esports teams take, in the professional sector, where we went and reached out for sponsorships. We attempted to, fundraise and things like that. But just kind of curious what people are doing because it's expensive, especially if you're establishing an arena. If you go to UPIC, oh my goodness, their arena is incredible. I really, recommend if you're nearby, get up with them and get a tour of it, just to get an idea of where you can maybe head. But that's just something I'm just curious how people are handling.
Well, with us being first year, actually, we got to talk with Play VS a little bit and hit on the reduced free lunch, and they gave us a break on so many seats. We also reached out to Best Buy here, and then we have GameStop, which, I mean, one of their main distribution warehouses in Shelbyville, so they're not that far away, but they've got 2 GameStops here, and we're hitting on them for, sponsorships. That didn't go through as the way we wanted it to. So we were running, like you were saying, that in itself is a challenge. And I think it goes to what you were saying earlier, though, with the notoriety of the sport and how it's grown exponentially, it's just going to take a little time for the notoriety of the sport that it is an actual KHSAA sanctioned sport. It's a varsity sport. And as soon as it reaches that notoriety, I think we start having the funding. But I know a lot of us, like myself, I volunteer to coach. I volunteer after school, after football, and I do coach it, and I just volunteer to do it. So those are definitely challenges for us, because I know time is money, especially in IT. Time is money. But I'd like to hear any ideas anybody else would have on it.
So we had reached out to some local businesses. I've done some work reaching out to GameStop and Best Buy and stuff like that. A lot of the bigger companies like that, they either don't do it, or they have a hard time donating money to stuff like that. I had mentioned the Bardstown Rotary Club before, where we volunteered. They actually ended up giving us $540 for mice, keyboards, and league fees, which was really awesome. And then some other businesses around Bardstown. Bardstown's like pretty small, and there's 4 high schools there, which is crazy. So a lot of the businesses get hit up for money over and over and over again. So it was kind of hard to do some fundraising with something so new. But businesses were willing to give us like free pork chops if we wanted to do like a pork chop fundraiser kind of thing. We had some quick lube places that gave us some gift cards and stuff that we could use for a silent auction and stuff like that. So they're willing to donate things, even if it's not necessarily money. They may be willing to donate items where you can do some sort of like team kickoff sort of fundraiser kind of thing at the beginning of the season. So I'd look into that as well.
I think the message is it's going to be all about the hustle and your perseverance to get that, keep that alive. Yeah. Just be creative about it. And then, like I said, as it becomes more established, maybe it'll be something that we can tap into. Well,
we also, sorry, Brandy. We also did an NBA 2K tournament where we have like paid entry into it. And our athletic department had paid for a couple copies of the game to be given out to the winners. So that's something you could think about too. Maybe around like the Super Bowl, we'd consider doing like a Madden tournament. So do some small things like that. You may get like $50 to $100 here and there, but it's still better than $0 here and there. So.
Super smart. And that sounds like fun. Nice. I'm glad you shared that. I think, yeah, just to wrap up today, this was fabulous. I love the opportunity that y'all are providing for these kids. And Elaine, I'm going to let you wrap us up and tell everybody how they can kind of keep this conversation going, because it's one that's just now starting and we got to stay connected to make it work.
Yes, thank you. Our eSports panel, thank you again for sharing with us today. This is a team sport, and you're helping us all work smarter by collaborating with us today and connecting. You can receive on-demand video support by subscribing to our Kentucky Go Digital live channel on YouTube, and all you have to do is click that red subscribe button. Use that Kentucky Go Digital hashtag so that you can connect with others across Twitter and Facebook, so that we can keep that conversation going on this and we can learn from one another. So our next show is in December with Boyle County, and we'll be discussing blended learning strategy. So don't forget, as you create, connect, share your good ideas on that hashtag so we can come together around the state. So till next time, thank you. Get involved with Kentucky Go Digital. Attend regional events, like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Twitter.